Bill, 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 Bill.
You're Locked On Coyotes, your daily podcast on the Arizona Coyotes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the show, everybody. This is Locked On Coyotes, your longest-running daily Arizona Coyotes podcast. I'm your host, Robyn Leon, here alongside Matthew Jacobson. I want to thank everyone for making this show your first listen every day. We are free and available everywhere you get your podcasts. We got a great episode today. We're talking a little bit about Bill Armstrong. We got a little bit of, a little bit off. But, since we're back, we're going to get to talk about some Bill Armstrong because it's exciting.
I might not be too religious myself, but Robyn, have you heard the good news? Have you heard about our Lord and Savior, one Bill Armstrong? Bill the Builder. One more time. Bill, 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 Bill. Before it is almost midnight as we're recording, so people are going to be very mad at me in the household. But let's talk about one Billiam J. Armstrong, because this man has completely single-handedly taken this organization from a rotten corpse, and he planted a brand new seed, and what we're seeing is a beautiful rose coming out of it, and that rose will blossom when it's time for the Stanley Cup, and we get him for more years, and officially, per Craig Morgan, it goes up until the 2028-29 season. That is the final year of his contract. We have locked up Bill the Builder for the rest of our roaring 20s. And we don't have to deal with this until 2029, but 2030. So when I'm probably dead of old age is when we have to think about Bill the Builder. And this is a great day. Oh my God, I am. Oh my gosh darn. Oh my gall dang. I am not. But we are so out of sorts. All right, I just want to pray and sing hymns and get down on it right now. Like let's praise Bill right now.
Oh, absolutely! It's the perfect time to do it. And we're gonna do some. We might draw comparisons to other general managers of the Coyotes have had a little bit later in the show. But let's start just overall, like so far in just these first couple of years under Bill Armstrong, the accomplishments he's already made. It just feels like a breath of fresh air. I feel like for a rebuilding, as a rebuilding team, he laid out the expectations, the initial expectations immediately. No dancing around it. He pretty much laid it, set it straight in everyone's faces. We're rebuilding. And this is what we're doing. This is how it's going to be. We're going to focus on draft capital. And he stuck to his word. And he executed it pretty darn well so far.
Yeah, straight up, every single thing this man has tried to do. Let's go down the list. First and foremost, acquiring King Louis. That's how you start a rebuild. You get the king himself, Louis Eriksson, on the roster. That's a big check right there. You went from a draft where you had no capital to Dylan Guenther. And what you traded, yes, you lost Connor Garland. I still was my favorite player on the team, but we have like two more Connor Garlands essentially with Guenther and Michelli in different aspects of his game. So we're fine. We got it. And all we had to do is trade you a very heavily used Oliver Ekman-Larsson, who was bought out, by the way. Just one more time to the people that got mad at me for saying don't re-sign Ollie. Literally they had to pay us. All right, they had to pay us that contract and then bought him out because there was no value. I probably misworded that, but you know what I'm saying. Worthless contract, terrible contract, great human being, terrible contract. You managed to move an unmovable contract in hockey. That was a great finessing, all right? Dylan Guenther, may we praise his name. We're going to stick with that imagery for the rest of the episode. May we praise his name, Dylan Guenther, and moving forward with us. Then they draft the king has returned. You get Joshua Doan in this system. You get guys like Logan Cooley. Let me just the best prospect in the world. That's an exact quote. I'm allowed to use it. The best prospect in the world, Logan Cooley.
Yeah, and not only that is bringing in, I think the smartest thing that Bill Armstrong has done is in terms of later round draft picks is drafting overagers so they can to kickstart a rebuild a little bit quicker. I mean, because they're not. You're getting, you get JJ Mo's an example because you knew he was going to be ready a little bit sooner because they were going to be able to get his reps. He started it in Tucson and he looked great enough so that he's all right. We're just going to bring you straight up here to the Coyotes because you're playing well enough and we think you're ready. That's the benefit about people overlook overagers because they weren't good enough when they're 18. They're not going to be good. No, that's not how it works. They actually get better because they realize it, or whatever it was. It works. It just works. It's nice. It really benefited the Coyotes to be able to do that, and they're going to be a better team. They slowly are progressively becoming a better team because of that. They don't have to wait 3 to 5 years for all their prospects to develop. Some of them are already there.
Yeah, and the thing with overagers is, sometimes they weren't good enough. Or they hadn't developed enough yet. And now they've had enough time to cook in the oven. They have enough time. Hey, I have to fix this element of my game or I will not be drafted. And Moser, like you said, started off in the AHL. It was basically an AHL cup of coffee. It was a glorified coffee date. And then, you're an NHLer. And now his new contract next year might make us a little sad with the cap hit. But he's a phenomenal defender. He still has number one defensive pairing upside. And even if he just maintains his top 4 status, I'm sorry, that was a second round asset. You got a consistent top 4 defenseman. Yeah, no. Then you bring in the best coach this franchise has ever seen. I think I'm ready to say that. Tippett was phenomenal for the time. He was phenomenal for that roster, that point in time we were in, having the veterans. Great job. Love Dave Tippett. He is number 2 for me. But what Andre Tournier has managed to do with this roster, all right, one last time, and then I'll put it to rest for a while. Rick Tocchet was an offensively impressive coach, and then you see what this roster can do under better leadership offensively. A player's coach, a coach that knows how to get the best out of these younger players. The amount of career years we've seen out of the younger kids we've had. Clayton Keller tied the all-time franchise record with Keith Tkachuk at 86 points in a season. That cannot be understated. Plus the phenomenal work all of his assistant coaches have done, and the good ideas and jobs and decisions to bring these guys in. Bill Armstrong has done literally everything except for put a playoff team in the Mullet Arena, which he might. We're ahead of schedule, and this year is still too early, all right? But I would not be shocked if next year they're a playoff team.
I mean, like you said, they'll flirt with it. They'll flirt with it a little bit this year, but they're not going to make it. But yes, you're right. I feel like Bill Armstrong has really done the work that he's needed to do he set up Andre Tournier for success, and Andre Tournier was able to execute that well. So I feel like that's what makes the dynamic of this front office just work so well right now. And I'll say it like I said earlier in this episode, at the beginning of the episode, it's like a breath of fresh air. And we'll continue that talk of breath of fresh air in just a minute. But first, a quick word from our sponsors on today's show.
Then when you think about it, FanDuel is kind of a breath of fresh air. I'm getting pretty good at these transitions, but football season is about to kick off. It already has, but it's about to kick off, and you have a chance to win all season long because right now, when you bet on a Super Bowl winner, you can get bonus bets every time they win in the regular season. That is right. You did not mishear me. Just pick a team to win the Super Bowl, and every victory this year, you get a bonus bet. You can use those bonus bets on spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon.
So let's start doing a little bit of other discussion within the whole Bill Armstrong thing, because he has been GM as of the time you guys are listening to this for the last 3 years. He was hired September 16th, 2020. So we were practically exactly 3 years from the date that he was hired as GM of the Coyotes, technically succeeding Steve Sullivan, who was interim GM after John Chayka just quit.
We don't speak about Steve Sullivan on this program when he wasted our top draft pick that year on a rescinded pick. We don't give Steve Sullivan credit anymore. We don't acknowledge his existence on this program anymore.
Steve Sullivan was also suspended by the NHL later in the year, but for other reasons, I think yes, a lot of different things. Or I think just straight up fired, I think. But
he got canned out of here, and the Coyotes look, they needed a win in PR, and drafting a pick you had to rescind because of public pressure doesn't get you that good PR now, does it?
Really quick, what I find interesting is that they're hiring of John Ferguson Jr. as their assistant GM to kind of replace what Steve Sullivan was. It's nice, kind of like full circle, especially since John Ferguson Sr. was the was the general manager of the Winnipeg Jets 1.0 which he left before they became the Coyotes, but it's kind of an interesting little tidbit for those that want to know a little bit of your hockey history.
I always like the history connections, and somewhere right now someone is screaming Nepo baby, because that is the appropriate reaction to whenever someone continues
that was so
legacy.
Far back, it's like, come on. John Ferguson Sr. was general manager of the Winnipeg Jets from 1978 until 1988. So that was 10.
Nepo baby. It's too fresh. He should have been John Ferguson the third or John Ferguson the fourth.
All right, but let's draw comparisons to the last two general managers, actual true general managers of the Coyotes, to kind of really see, where the trajectory that Bill Armstrong is on versus the trajectory that the last general managers took the Coyotes. I want to start with Don Maloney because I feel like he was around for a longer amount of time.
Don't do this to me. I have so much nostalgia for Don. I will stand by this, and not just because he shares a name with my dad. All right, I respect Don Maloney. I think he is probably, at least in my lifetime, the second best GM this franchise. He brought a team on a shoestring budget, literally no budget. Brought him to the Western Conference Finals. We got 3 straight years of playoffs. Literally, that is the equivalent of me living in a studio apartment and hitting 1 million subs. This dude, he delivered with literally no assets, and I respect him. But he also heavily favored trades with the Rangers and Chicago are two the biggest trade partners. And we didn't necessarily win all of those trades. And there was some questionable drafting. And there actually was some Nepo baby type drafting under the Maloney era. Do you remember having both of Samuelson's kids in our system, drafting Henrik with the 28th overall pick or whatever it was?
Oh, yeah.
We remember this.
It was
Robyn,
pretty fun.
do we remember this?
Yeah. If anyone wants to know, Don Maloney is where is he currently with the he's the president of hockey operations now at the Calgary Flames.
Yep.
So he's still around in the NHL, which is pretty cool. Good for him. And you're right, he did make some great decisions, some questionable contract signings during his final days, but what were some of his contract signings?
That sounded so unnecessarily bleak. His final days.
His final days as general manager.
Okay, but he's not dead. He might look like a skeleton now, but he's not dead. All right, he stepped away. Was it 2015?
2016.
2016. He started in the 2008 or is it earlier? Oh God, Nick has me speaking like that. 2008. Do you have the higher date on hand?
Oh yeah. He was hired in 2007. May 29, 2007.
Do you want to start with some trades? Because like even just in 2009, there's a couple really good ones.
Let's hear it.
So they got Lori Korpakowski for Enver Leeson. And as much as I like Enver Leeson, there was a New York Rangers trade, by the way, funny enough. As much as I liked Leeson, he just never really developed here or even after he left. And Corpy was a pretty good role player. They also traded David Hale, who I liked. He's a decent 6 or 7 defenseman. And Todd Fedoruk, who 98% of you forgot he played for us, for Radim Verbata to reacquire him in 2009. The original trade for Verby, I think it was a couple of years back. I have a list right here. Show me the original Verby trade. It was August 11, 2007. It was a 1-for-1, probably the best trade in Coyotes history. Radim Verbata for Kevin Adams. I liked Kevin Adams. Do you remember who the hell Kevin Adams is? Do you remember him being on this roster? Like, tell me the truth.
No, I don't. I cannot recall.
Like there was some really solid trading here. There's some bad ones. There's some mediocre ones. They moved on from Tyson Nash in a pick to get Michael Telquist, who was a serviceable backup for a while. They moved on from Paul Mara in a third for a fourth, and Nick Boynton, who I was a really big fan of. I wanted to go back up here. The waiver claim for Brizgalov obviously was massive. You did get some value at least for Mueller, but maybe not as much as you would have wanted. They traded on Matt Jones, who was one of my favorite players because he wore the number 5 and we share initials, and a couple of lower picks for Lee Stempniak, who was a very serviceable, solid role player for this team. He even had, I think, a 20-goal season or 2 under his belt for this team. He was pretty good. Let's see. They got David Lankow to trade back to get rid of Stempniak because I don't think he was going to re-sign. They acquired McCulloch for kind of nothing. To an extent from the Wild, but I don't remember if that was quite Maloney's tenure. And his tenure was full of a lot of trades that he pulled solid players out of nothing.
I'm looking at an article that was posted, several years ago that kind of just takes a look at some of the highlights, and they were like, here are some of the names of players that he drafted.
Mm-hmm.
He drafted Connor Murphy, Brandon Gormley, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, Mark Bicentin, Brandon Perlini, Max Domi, Henrik Samuelsson, and Mikhail Bodker.
There's a lot of hit and miss there.
Yeah.
There's
a lot of hit and miss.
There's a lot of hit and miss. I think his trades were better than his drafts.
Also, Christian Dvorak. Christian Dvorak, I believe, was a Maloney draft.
Oh, was he 2015? I'm looking at it right now. No, he was a 2014. Yeah, he was. They also drafted Ryan McInnes in front of him, and then Perlini in front of him. But they also, to be fair, Bunting in the 4th round, Dyson Mayo in the 5th, who he played more games than Ryan McInnes at the NHL level. You got to give him some credit. Laurent Dauphin was an okay pick, maybe a little high. Connor Clifton's played 230 games. I don't think he ever played a single game for the Coyotes. Maxwell Domi wasn't a bad pick. Jordan Martinook in the 2nd wasn't a bad pick. I liked Lucas Lesio, but it was very short-lived. Oscar Lindberg, Louis Domingue. There's some value here. It just kind of feels like he had more Victor Tikhonovs drafted than he had the good aspects of Kyle Turris, let's say.
That would make sense.
This episode's been great. I get to just indulge my 2008 or 2007 to about 2013 Coyotes nostalgia. So I'm like, do you remember when Rostislav Klesla was a Coyote, or Kurt Sauer, or do you remember when Peter Mueller played for this team? I remember. Do you remember?
All right. Something that I just almost forgot about. I'm reading another article that was on ESPN that kind of was like, it discusses a lot of things about the Maloney era. This was a little bit different, but it kind of just gives you an idea of what else happened during that era.
Mhm.
But this article said Arizona was also embroiled in controversy surrounding the All-Star selection of John Scott.
I am not allowed to comment on this matter. I'm not allowed to comment on John Scott.
All right. Anyways, though, so let's go ahead though and move on to the next, because we did a decent discussion of Don Maloney. Yeah, one final thing I'll say about him is, yes, he did win General Manager of the Year award back in 09, 010.
He deserved it, by the way. That was off the bankruptcy. He deserved that.
Yes. But let's follow it by fake analytics man John Chayka.
Do you mind editing in some swears or editing out swears? Because look, here's the best way to talk about Chayka, and to be as PG as possible. His moves on paper looked really good until they didn't, and I will stand by this. All right, I stand by, because Taylor Hall did elevate Connor Garland, but he didn't elevate the team. I love the mindset behind that trade. If you look back on it, minus I think it was a Dawson Mercer pick. I forget which pick it was, but the actual players, the best of that bunch was Kevin Ball, and Kevin Ball is kind of like a fringe NHLer, good size, decent player. Nothing against Kevin Ball, but Kevin Ball and some stuff for Taylor Hall, not bad, but they couldn't keep the asset, and the asset didn't elevate them in the playoffs, so it ultimately was bad. Getting Phil Kessel, P.O. Joseph, in my opinion, I stand by this, was really that wasn't a big deal. Like, he's an okay player. I don't think he would have made it here. Is what it is. But Kessel did not elevate the team. He might have played well that first year, like meshing with the system, not goal scoring wise, but he meshed pretty well and did help when he wasn't injured and playing through injury. But getting that talent was the right move. Maybe getting him specifically wasn't, and it didn't end up working out. And how many draft picks and trades did that happen where, oh, this should be really good. Oh, this sounds really good. Like, I remember how excited I was for the Kessel trade and for the Taylor Hall trade. I was in the kitchen right over there, this house, yelling with Todd, Taylor Hall's a Coyote. Like, I was excited, and he did elevate Garland, but not the team. Like, so many of these moves looked good until they didn't. And he's a snake oil salesman, and it's hard to get rid of that context now, because we know literally the only thing that worked out was the Keller contract, because everything else didn't in one way or another. Chikrin, good player. The contract, he couldn't play.
One of John Chayka's last moves, we mentioned this name earlier, and I want to, and we'll get, so we kind of get you there. That scratches some people's heads based off what ended up happening later, was the 8-year contract signed to Oliver Ekman-Larsson, which, if there was rumors around that time that Oliver Ekman-Larsson already wanted out, he signed him to an 8-year deal, and it's the question's still there. It's like, oh, what do you already wants out, and it just was kept circulating, and look, it ended up becoming a mess.
Alex Goligoski, a 5-year contract. If that was a 3-year contract, you would have been out from under it. You would have had the cap space, because Goligoski only had a couple of good years here.
The Clayton Keller contract at the time was questionable. At the time, and even for the first year or two, still questionable.
Yeah, because he needed to prove it. And I get the criticisms, but that one at least justified itself later. Chikrin, they signed him before he played his first game of that 18-19 season. They were in Detroit. They signed the contract. The dude hasn't been able to play very much on it. He's a good player when he plays, but he hasn't been able to play, and now he's gone because they had to get out from under it. Derek Stepan, they wanted a first-line center. He's always been a second-line center at best. Antti Ranta had phenomenal stretches and good overall numbers, but could not stay healthy. This has been a consistent trend with Chayka. Looking at all of his moves, they look or sound good for a period of time before the bottom falls out. And it's just, he's a snake oil salesman. He was not a good GM. All these moves should have been good but they weren't. And
They should have been good because of the claim that it's a lot of the decisions were based off of analytics. But it's funny because the analytics community had disowned John Chayka.
Yeah, they hate John Chayka. Even they say he wasn't analytics, and like even people that don't really understand analytics are like, yeah, he wasn't an analytics guy. So it's like when the experts and the layman don't
I think at the time before that, people dismissed that whatever. Some people were like, "Oh, what is he going to do? Be the Moneyball GM of the Arizona for the Arizona like."
He spent too much to be an analytics guy. Like I said, Goligoski, that contract angers me because he signed it. I think that he signed it at 31, or the season started at 31. You do not sign a 31-year-old defenseman to a 5-year contract. I will stand by. I don't care what defenseman it is. Look how good Shea Weber was for as long as he was, and that contract is still moving on past his playing career. Like, it doesn't matter how good a player is or how good they've been. The bottom will fall out, and locking a guy in his 30s to a 5+ year contract is stupid. And if they would have had the cap flexibility, you could have tried to keep Taylor Hall. You could have tried to make this move. You could have tried to make that move. And the dude it was nice. It was good feeling at the time. Hey, they're spending money. But there was no long-term plan. And as soon as the bottom fell out, the dude jumped off the ship. And we're all looking at it like, we're going to suck for a while. we're going to be bad for a while after this.
We're going to be running out of time here in a little bit, but I'll say this, the biggest stain that John Chayka has on his tenure of the Coyotes is quitting right before the bubble in Edmonton. And enough so that the Coyotes were so upset by this that their statement, I looked the statement up because I really wanted to read this again because it was a next level of upset that you would get out of a public statement from a professional hockey team. But where it says, John Chayka has quit as general manager and president of hockey operations of the Arizona Coyotes. The club is disappointed in his actions and his timing as the Coyotes prepare to enter the NHL's hub city of Edmonton, where the team will begin postseason play for the first time since 2012. Chayka has chosen to quit on a strong and competitive team, a dedicated staff, and the Arizona Coyotes fans, the greatest fans in the NHL. Like, they legit threw him under the bus, saying he just quit.
And like, I still hold just let me give a little bit of criticism towards Morello, because his public comments around that time were, we want him here. We believed in him. Like, we think he's a good GM. We want him here. And like, given the context and the hindsight, no. And that was kind of why I remember being kind of skeptical about Bill Armstrong's hire. It was kind of he should be good, but we'll see, if I remember correctly. My reaction. Exactly. And like, they kind of did that to themselves when you think about it.
Oh, absolutely. It was just like, so there was too much questioning around it, especially because of what, how, all the fallout that happened in just a couple months prior. Mm-hmm. Right. So it was a really tough situation. And so like, I feel like the expectations for Bill Armstrong was set pretty low to start off with. So I think it made it easier that now he's easily exceeded our expectations and then some. And now we're just praising him to Lord be, because he's been fantastic.
We have Bill the Builder until the 2030s, and I'm happy. I'm gonna be like 40 by the time he's moving on.
I mean, like, I had a little bit of optimism with Bill Armstrong when he was initially hired, right after the whole Chayka situation, because I just heard from the St. Louis Blues organization and some of the people that were around that said, hey, he was a really good assistant with Doug Armstrong. So like, it made. And
they're not related, by the way. I thought they were. I'm an idiot. They look nothing alike. They're not related.
No, they're not. Like, that was a team that put together a Stanley Cup winning St. Louis Blues team. Mm-hmm. Like that, like, you had to give them that credit. right? You had to give him so much credit, and it's nice. So when Bill Armstrong came in, he was like, all right, he's going to help build a Stanley Cup caliber team. It might be from the ground up, but he's going to do it. And again, like I said, I will praise him again as we're running out of time. I'll praise him again for being transparent when he first came in about that.
And they stuck to the plan, and I have full faith in him. The worst move was the Timmins trade, because the worst move before that was the pick protection on the Dvorak trade, which would have given the Coyotes first overall, but they got third overall and they got the best player in that draft anyway. It literally didn't matter. Like the two worst moves were a player they were going to have to waive anyway, so you get something for them, and they got third instead of first. Oh, Biggie.
Yeah. Really quick on that. I did see a little like one of those memes where it said start, bench, cut. Logan Cooley, Uri Slafkovsky, and Shane Wright. A lot of people who even weren't Coyotes fans said start Cooley, bench Slafkovsky, cut Wright.
I agree. I think Wright. I think you bench Wright and cut Slafkovsky, because even like Wright's shown a little more at the next level, and it's very early. It probably will change, but like as of right now, this moment.
I mean, Shane Wright did so well with the Firebirds and the Colorado crap. I will give him that.
Yeah.
But anyways, do you have any final thought you want to give on before I close?
Bill can have my babies. I will run through a brick wall for that man. I will literally go personally tear down the Glendale Arena so I can bring the stones to wherever they're building the new one, so they have the materials to build this new arena.
Well, there we go. That can be it for today's episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast. If you like what you heard, don't forget to leave a review, like, comment, subscribe if you've yet to already. We're available everywhere you get your podcast, including on YouTube and the Sirius XM radio app. Don't forget to interact with us on social media. We're on Facebook, facebook.com/LockedOnCoyotes, and on the app formerly known as Twitter at @LO_Coyotes. I'm personally at Robyn_Leonio. Matt Jacobson is at the AZ Sports Guy. Interact with us, ask a question you might have. We might answer right back or on a future episode of the Locked On Coyotes podcast. Thanks again, everyone, for listening to today's episode. Hope you guys are staying safe out there. Hope you guys are staying healthy. And don't forget to howl on.